As the gods of the copybook headings limp up to explain once more that fire will certainly burn us and water will wet us. They could learn that in California. We have Brian Fennessy. He is the Orange County, California Fire Chief, to tell us a little about what's going on and how is Orange County doing, Brian? Welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you very much. A little bit about the fires just across a few miles from here in LA. They're not spreading as they were. I think both are kind of in a stable position, but there's certainly a lot of heat, in those and on those fires. And the new wind event, albeit not, 80 miles an hour, 100 mile an hour gusts, are still very concerning. So those fires are going to be wind tested. Here in Orange County, it's just howling. It's blowing hard. It was all last week, and I think we here dodged a bullet, but we're expecting that for another couple days. And I'm told there might be another Santa Ana wind event forecasted for next week. So we can't stand much more.
Brian, this is totally predictable. Was it not? Totally predictable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We when I started back in 1978, we'd usually have a few days' notice. Meteorology is not what it is today.
Correct.
We start to get notified about 10 days out, and then confidence builds at 7 days. And then when you're about 4 days out, we're pretty sure, what's going to expect. So, yes, forecasting and predicting is far better than it's ever been.
So what should have been done in those 4 days before the fire broke out?
Well, I'll tell you what was done. And we have a program called pre-positioning that about 6 years ago, the fire chiefs in the state got the state of California to put money behind this pre-positioning, meaning that if we go through a matrix, county by county, and we meet certain criteria, there's a number of things, we are approved for pre-position funding, which means I can bring on additional aircraft, additional bulldozers, engines, and the state will pay for them so that not only are all of my stations filled and ready to go, but I might have 2 or 3 more strike teams 5 engines. I might have additional helicopters, dispatch staff. So all of the Southern California counties were approved for pre-positioning. And so we had, definitely extra resources available should they be needed. And certainly they were deployed very, very quickly.
So, but that's Orange County.
No, that's every county.
It's every
county in the state is eligible for it, but each county has to go through this matrix to meet it. And so I don't know for sure, but I would expect that Santa Barbara County South were all approved for pre-position funding. And quite frankly, here in Orange County, and when I was the fire chief in San Diego City, we didn't wait for pre-positioning. If this weather was going to surface, we're going to staff up, and if we go over budget, we go over budget. Our job is to protect our communities, and the mayor I worked for at the time understood that. So it's nice to be reimbursed for it, but that's not a necessity. We're going to staff up even beyond what the state approves if we believe we need to do that.
Yeah. So as we're watching this from Texas and all around the country, it seems as though it was known that it was going to happen. This is routine. You expect the Santa Ana winds every year. You expect forest fires and brush fires in California every year. So this was just one of the really bad ones. Then it seems like incompetence of cutting the funding for the fire agencies, not really truly being prepared. And then on top of it, it seems incompetence to a level that is almost criminal. And then the third part of this, as we see it, as I see it, is there might be some actors after the main fire started that are also setting fires. What their motives are yet unknown, but there are also some arsonists involved in that. Do I have that picture right?
Partially. And maybe totally. I don't know for sure, but I will tell you this, that, I grew up in Altadena, and that's one of the towns that's pretty well wiped out. And so, when you live that close to the foothills, you're used to Santa Ana winds. They're coming. and they can be brutal right there in the foothills. And it's not uncommon for we'd consider a strong Santa Ana to be 40, 50 mile an hour winds, steady, with gusts maybe to 60, 70. The event that was experienced last week, and you know this, was 60, 70
right, steady
with gusts to 90, 100. Something like that. I mean, we have a hard time dealing with the former. Something like that, we're trying to manage expectations. Is we can't stop that fire. And I think, many times, the public, well, let me put it this way. If this were a hurricane or a tornado, firefighters aren't stopping those either.
Right.
And so why?
But they do pre-position. You look at Florida. They've got the trucks lined up before that thing even comes ashore.
Yep, they're the best, and they get disaster declarations in advance, and they get things moving.
Right.
Florida is an amazing model, and Texas is a good model as well. But in terms of I can't speak for LA City. I don't know what they pre-positioned or upstaffed. But I've said it to a number of people. They could have had another, 1,000 engines, and we weren't going to stop this fire. Now, having said that, once the winds diminished and the fire, this was no longer a wildland fire. This became an urban conflagration, house-to-house spread. The fuel was the structures. And so, once the wind diminished to a point where, firefighters could get in there and start working on the structures, there were just so many. I mean, I drove those fires, and I've been doing this since 1978. I couldn't believe the structures, the businesses that were burning so far from the mountain that it came off of. I mean, it was even incredible for me. In terms of the water, I think that's being sorted out. I'm probably hearing the same things that you are, that reservoirs, may not have been as filled as they needed to be. Yes, a draw on the system can cause, some decrease in pressure, but I've never heard of anything where there actually wasn't pressure.
Right.
I do know, and I've shared this with people, that in 2003 in San Diego, we had at the time, the largest fire in California history. We lost pressure, but that was because pump stations had been burned, and we didn't know they existed. Had we known, we'd have protected those pump houses as much as we protect a house to ensure that we had pressure.
Right.
So I'm confident the city of LA, and I'm hearing that the governor has, ordered an investigation. That's going to get sorted out. That's going to get public. And yes, it could be quite embarrassing and life-changing for a few people involved in whatever decision making took place.
Good. We have to learn from our lessons, learn lessons from our mistakes.
Totally agree.
You are being talked about of going into the Department of Interior. You had not heard that?
Well, I'm hearing I'm hearing rumblings. People have asked if I was interested in perhaps even becoming the new U.S. Forest Service chief, and I've shared with others that should I be approached at some point, I would certainly consider it, because quite frankly, that agency is a mess when it comes to firefighting. The pay and benefits for their firefighters are leaving in droves. They are so underpaid and underbenefited that they're leaving, to go to work for state and local government agencies like mine and like LA counties. And this isn't anything new. I used to work for them for 13 years, both the USDA Forest Service and the Department of Interior, BLM. And I left as a crew superintendent. I ran crews. And back then, we were significantly underpaid. I left the municipal department in 1990, went to San Diego because of it, and it's gotten worse. And it's not managed or organized like a fire department. And if they're going to be in the fire business, they need to be organized and led like a fire department. Yes, they're a resource agency, and yes, they have things beyond fire. But if you look at the Forest Service budget, primarily now it's fire that's being funded.
Sure.
And they definitely need some help. And their firefighters, quite frankly, Glenn, that they're going to be without a fire department very, very soon.
Jeez.
And
I have to tell you, it was the National Forest Service that helped save my neighbor's ranch and probably mine. If we would have had high winds, it would have been over. But the local fire came out, and immediately the Forest Service had already positioned. They looked at my canyon and went, "This is dry. This is just a disaster waiting to happen," and they were ready for it, and they saved it. I mean, they did a great job there.
They have amazing firefighters.
Yeah, they do.
I spent 13 years on hotshot crews, so I know the business, and I know the people that are out there now. Their firefighters are amazing. They're smoke jumpers, they're hotshots, they're engine crews, they're hell attack. Unfortunately, again, they're organized in such a way that they don't. It would take too long to speak to. But it's just sad to see. I mean, here in California, I'm told that we're only able to staff their stations at 60%. In my own county, I have 3 Forest Service stations, and they could only staff one of those stations, 2 on occasion, 8 to 10 hours a day all summer. We had a fire. The airport fire that earlier this summer that burned over 100 homes. And the station closest to that fire was not staffed. And so, I made Congress aware and others aware. And right now, I don't think the Forest Service is happy with me because I'm being very public about things that they should be very public about.
So would it be the Forest Service or the Department of Interior that would be responsible for getting underbrush cleared?
Well, I think it's both. I've worked for both the USDA and USDI, and let's face it, at least out here in the West, firefighters for decades have done such a great job at suppressing fires quickly that it's caused this growth, and we've got an unhealthy landscape out there. And we need to start putting beneficial fire back on the landscape. We need to clear the brush. But here's another thing, Glenn. Those same firefighters that we're losing, those are the people that are going to do the work.
I know.
And so if you don't have the workforce to do the work that needs to be done, how do you get it done? It doesn't matter how many millions or billions of dollars you throw at the problem if you don't have the people there to do the work. But yes, I mean, we need to do something about this unhealthy forest. And people are working hard at it. Certainly CAL FIRE is showing amazing, incredible success with it, but we're years behind, man. This is decades of not treating, the fuels and the landscape, and it's going to be decades to fix it. But we got to do something, and we've got to have a workforce to be able to do it. And like I say, if asked, and I haven't been asked by anybody officially, but just informal people have suggested and asked, is that something I would consider? And absolutely. And, certainly pay is less of an issue. It would be a pay cut for me, but it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about, what we as firefighters, have sworn to do. And we need to fix that organization.
Quickly, can I ask you, I'm up against a network break. Can I just ask you about the safety inspections of the Oregon fire trucks and everything? That was not to make sure of emissions. That was to make sure that they could function, correct? Which seems insane too, but go ahead.
I'm unaware of that, of what you're talking about, but I know that we do inspect, not we, but the state or the feds will inspect engines and whatnot when they arrive, and then before they leave to make sure they're safe. So I'm not familiar at all with the situation you're talking about.
All right, Brian, thank you so much. I hope you're called up because we need to take all of our agencies and especially all of our services that are protecting us seriously again. We haven't for quite a long time. Brian, thank you so much.
Yep, we need change. So thank you.
You bet. Brian Fennessy, Orange County Fire Chief.